And we're live. Welcome, everyone. It's Friday, and another great episode of Actionable Innovations Conversations is happening today. We're happy for you to be here, and we'd love for you to introduce yourself if you're in the chat for any of the platforms that we're broadcasting to. We'll give you a few minutes to get settled here, but you might want to tell us who you are, if you're here, what your location is, and what the weather's like. Hopefully we have a nice audience from around the world today, and we're thrilled to have you here. So this is Actionable Innovations Conversations, and this is part of Actionable Innovations Global, an organization that I run with several people. We used to be known as the Global Education Conference Network. You may have remembered us from those days. And this is what we do. We are seeking to provide professional development opportunities for educators around the world. We support and inspire education leaders. We host these kinds of conversations and connect people through virtual events. And we write about global education innovations in a blog on Medium. And I see Eileen's here in Kuwait. Hi, Eileen. It's great to have you here. If everybody else wants to weigh in the chat, wherever you are, we'd love to hear from you too. We have an inclusive professional learning community that you can join at actionableinnovations.global. And we have some upcoming events that I'll tell you about in a minute. Marina's here from Argentina. Yay. And Lisa Russell is here, another filmmaker. We're getting a nice crowd today, Pablo. It's pretty exciting. So if you want to get more involved with Actionable Innovations Global, you can look at our links on Linktree / Actionable Inno. We have an online community and Twitter and all that. I also will take a minute to put the link up so that you can see it on the screen if you're not able to catch it on the slides. So we would love for you to get more involved with our community. If you want to be one of these guests on our webinar series or present at one of our conferences and that sort of thing, we'd love for you to be part of it, and you can join through the links that are provided here. So Linktree / Actionable and Inno. And then I'm going to put this away for a second so you can see this. Tomorrow, we have an exciting virtual event happening in Hop In called the NEA Foundation's Global Learning Ed Camp. And this is an unconference. It's a participant-driven professional learning experience. And it is open to everyone. It's free. And we have several organizations that are going to be there with resources to help you globalize your classroom, including Pablo's organization that you're going to hear about soon. So we would love for you to be there. It is happening from 1 p.m. Eastern time to 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, but we're opening the conference early so that people can do informal networking. The live portion goes from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. So just be aware of that if you come in, there may not be anything going on right that second, but you can try, there's like a networking tool that you can try out, and you can chat with people and that sort of thing. So we're really excited about it. The NEA Foundation is thrilled about it, and they are going to be lots of their fellows. They have a fellowship program for U.S. teachers. Lots of their fellows will be there. And we hope that you will mingle with them and get to know them because they're pretty amazing educators. So that is happening tomorrow. And today in our webinar, we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. I see a few more people have joined us. And feel free to comment and use that chat box to share information that you'd like the audience, like others to know about. If you'd like to put your Twitter handle or your LinkedIn profile, you can put the link in there, and so that others can connect with you. We want this event to be a networking opportunity for everyone. I love introducing interesting educators and other people to my professional learning network, and I hope that all of our networks grow as a result of this kind of opportunity. If you'd like to tweet out anything and invite people into this, we use the hashtag GlobalEd23. And that's all that we need for you to do today. We really want you to participate. Our guest today is Pablo Herrera, who has been a presenter at our Global Learning for an Open World conference. And he's going to start with a presentation in a few minutes, followed by discussion. And feel free to jump in anytime. You can find Pablo on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and at Colectivo Piloto. I don't know. My Spanish is not great. .org is his organization. So without further ado, Pablo, welcome. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lucy. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And you're so enthusiastic about everything and sharing your work and working with youth. And that's why I thought it would be fun to have a conversation with you. As we, as our organizations, this organization, your organization are trying to grow and reach more teachers. I think it's an opportunity to collaborate. So we're really thrilled to have you here. Mm-hmm. Typically, our next thing is I ask you a few questions from my colleague Don Buckley's Proust questionnaire that's adapted from Vanity Fair. And I put the link in the chat, and the audience can also respond to these questions too. But this is kind of an icebreaker to kind of get us started. And once we get done with these questions, then I'll turn it over to you and we'll have a great conversation. So, when and where were you the happiest? What makes you happy? A place, location?
Yeah, well, that is a good question. I would say that my best time probably, and it's related to education as well, when I was living in Barcelona and I was creating some amazing and exciting projects with teens, especially when I was on my 30s, so it was like a super engaging work with them. And the things that we got to create with them. And I felt barely that I was one more of them, to say in some way. So it was like a second adolescence, to say in some way.
Okay.
So it was super, super nice.
And when you're in your 30s, you have the energy to keep up with the young people too. And there's nothing like that kind of that flow feeling, right? When you're working with students and they're getting excited and they're taking, they're taking guidance and running with it in their own way. And I miss that. I miss being in a school around students that are doing that. I was thinking about the first time I really did filmmaking with kids. We took a bunch of video cameras to Washington, D.C. on an 8th grade D.C. trip. And these students are now probably in their 30s. And I still have the video somewhere. And we filmed everything, and we didn't know what we were doing. I was not a trained filmmaker. And, I think there's something to be said about less is more. But we had hours of footage and we came back and we whittled it down into something that was presented to the 8th grade class. And to see the kids working on it and being invested in it was really satisfying and exciting. And I think if we were doing it now, this is like 20 years ago, I think it would be a little bit more efficient. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your most prized possession?
Well, I mean, since I moved twice in my life, I grew up in Argentina. When I was 20 something, I moved to Spain. Then, so I just put everything in just a couple of bags that I have, and then just, start a new life. And then I did it again when I moved to the United States. So it's difficult for me to rely in one such an object that I keep. And there is one that is a little figure of a pig that I got. I remember when in a visit that I did to Florence, that after that, 20 years later, I got married in Florence. So that is the conscience of life, right? So anyway, but I have that little piece in my bathroom, actually. And it's a little figure of a pig in a pink color. And it's barely, I would say, that the only thing that has been consistent with me, like a material thing that has been consistent with me for the last 20 years, I would say.
So, so I think there's something to be said about, again, less is more, but also though I being a global citizen and moving around, it's not about the stuff. It's about experiences, right? And so something small that can give you a memory is pretty powerful.
Excellent.
And the older I get, the more I feel like I don't really care about the stuff. I don't need stuff. I actually want to get rid of stuff. But
Mhm.
for me, as I mentioned to you earlier, there are some things that are really that I are special that I never would be able to have in just by in my own circumstance. So my favorite prized possession is a set of 3 ceramic pieces that my grandmother bought in the south of France in the 1960s at a studio where Picasso was learning to
Mm.
create ceramics. And he made, I don't think they're particularly valuable because when you obviously when you mass produce things like ceramics, it's not like a painting. Um, but in one of our it's called Madeira pottery and Madura pottery. And one of our previous guests also, when she was a college student, went to that same town and bought the same kinds of pieces, which I thought was kind of serendipitous a few months ago. So that's my favorite prized possession. Does
Yes.
anybody else have if anybody else in the chat wants to say what your prized position is, or what makes you happy, let us know. Um, and then my last question for you, Pablo, is who are your heroes of real life or fiction? Who inspires you?
That is interesting. I would say that in fiction is I don't know if you're aware about El Chapulín Colorado.
Yeah.
No, that is a comedian from Mexico
Okay.
called Chespirito that I think that he passed away already. But it was like a kind of mocking American superheroes, right? And he was like a chapulín, like this little insect, right?
Okay.
Um, and it was really funny. I mean, I laughed a lot with him my whole life. And I think that is a really nice parody, right, of that stereotype of American heroes, right? So it's something that made me laugh in a good way.
Uh, so that's a real life hero. Any fictional heroes that you can think of too?
Yeah, well, Chapulín Colorado
Oh,
I mean, we can say that it's a mix in between both of
oh,
them
okay.
because he was a comedian, and also as a comedian, I think that he tried to like um, be a child
Yeah.
by by being an adult at the same time, right? So it is really interesting how he was able to make people laugh, trying to imitate how childs you know live or how they are, right? So a very clever, smart way of make humor.
Okay. I don't know who my hero is of real life. There are a lot. I think I tend to read biographies of women who have led interesting lives. And right now I'm reading a biography about Susan Rice, who is stepping down from the Biden administration. I think she's the domestic advisor to Biden right now, but she's worked in international relations for a very long time and had a pretty stellar career. And so I'm reading that right now. I'm inspired, and she's probably about the same age as I am. So I'm thinking a lot about women who have made the most of their careers and have had an impact on the world. So those are the kind of people that inspire me. And I don't necessarily pick these books on purpose. I just kind of stumble into them. Another one that very similar person that I read last year was Samantha Power, who was, I think she's head of USAID now. So anyway, strong women like that, biographies, those are my heroes.
Mhm.
Um, if anybody else has a hero they want to share, I see that we've got lots of filmmakers in the audience. Pablo, this is pretty exciting. We've got a good collection of people here today. So thank you for coming, everyone. I'm going to turn this over to Pablo, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his work, and then we'll jump into a conversation. And let me put your slides up there. And we're ready to go. Thanks, Pablo, for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Thank you. Well, as Lucy mentioned, I'm the director of Colectivo Piloto, which is a nonprofit organization which advances community participation and youth development through multimedia storytelling. We started with this organization about 20 years ago when I was living in Barcelona, in Spain. And the story of this organization was basically just to raise awareness about how technology was in certain ways at the moment influencing the ways in we tell stories. So, and I put this picture here of this camera because this was like the first. We tend to think that phones were the primary way to popularize multimedia tools, but before there was this device that made common for people to start to film movies and do things, right? Our idea with this we created a festival in the city of Barcelona to incentivize people to encourage people to use these kind of devices to tell stories about their neighborhoods and their communities. The interesting thing is like a couple of years later, this was when YouTube was just launched. And the idea of this was as well just to try to put some curation on the things that the technology companies were not doing at the moment. They were creating the platforms and everybody started jumping videos there, but nobody were curating those videos, right? So the idea of this, encourage the use of these devices with community members and put filmmakers and just common people working together to create stories and to tell stories was something very powerful at the moment. And the goal of this festival was especially that, to advance community and get people to connect with each other through the creation of these movies, right? And using these common devices that were popularizing at the time. From that point on, we created this festival, and the interesting thing is that after a couple of years of this festival, it started to pop up many other festivals, right? And remember the Sundance Festival created a mini film festival into the main festival which was sponsored for a mobile the brand. And the idea was just addressed to the filmmakers, right? Well, the idea, or our idea, was to try to connect common people with filmmakers. So that was the difference, right? Or the reason for concern was, okay, how these people is starting to use these devices to tell stories, right? From then, the city of Barcelona really liked the idea, and they say that they reach out to us and say, okay, do you want to go to the public schools and start teaching to kids by using these devices? From that point on, we started doing workshops in schools until we, 5 years later, ended to creating TV shows and teens shows using all the full potential of multimedia resources. So it was an evolution very fast, but at the end of the day, we keep in mind trying to raise awareness about the technology that people already have in their pockets, right? So 20 years later, again, this is an article that I wrote in my publication, Storytelling for All, a couple of weeks ago. In many of the workshops that we do right now, we grab the kids and we encourage them to grab the phone and go and film their neighborhoods, right? And catch portion of the reality that what is happening in their neighborhoods. In that way, be more communicated with the neighborhood and be an active part of the neighborhood, and also use the devices that they already have to try to communicate in some way, in an effective way and in a conscious way, and for them being aware how they can use these devices. So 20 years later, after when we are started with that activity, we are still on the same, trying to advance media literacy with people. And is what is happening right now, for example, with all the social medias and how teens consume this sort of images, and we are not teaching enough to them visual culture and how to analyze images and how those images affect them, their mental well-being. So this was a journey for 20 years, working in different countries in Latin America, in Spain and United States, trying to bring media literacy to communities. I want to show an example in a screen video with an example that a project that we did with the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City in public schools in Queens, to raise awareness about how technology is used in schools. When we started doing this project, it's important to notice that the project was running like for 5 years, but they were doing just stop motion animation workshops. And we say, okay, let's reconfigure this and let's reframe it to give it a theme that is going to be engaging for teens and make the canvas be the canvas and not the story, right? Which is something that many people forget sometimes, right? It's like we say, okay, the story is YouTube, or the story is TikTok, no, or the story is Instagram, no. The story is what we tell, and the platforms are there, but the tech companies are not going to. Actually, it's not their job, right? What we need is bring more media literacy to communities and to kids, and generate more activities that make the endless digital space more curated in some way, right? So let's screen this video, Lucy, and so we can have a glance in how we can use multimedia resources with a meaning.
Do you want me to show the animation one or the other one?
The animation, yes.
Okay.
And for the Museum of the Moving Image.
We'll start at the beginning here. There we go.
Hi, this is the Iris when I did to school. I'm here because for the animation workshop and for the Museum of the Moving Image. I live in the workshop to make animation, to move stage and like making magic and to have fun.
Ok, descend. Plus mais non animation.
Do it for coming up as well.
Sambil evoca ban nan ki tem baz. Ok, sambil se c'est pour les m'a faire photo. It's
We're taking the picture.
Yeah, when taking the picture.
And animating.
We're trying to make stop motion animation relevant to issues in their everyday lives and world issues. So we're using the UN rights of the child as a theme throughout the workshop.
I think it's great that the museum took on that innovation to have animation around developing the rights of children. It gives them voice, it gives them opportunity to self-select, and then to create an animation with those kinds of activities and vocabulary and experiences around the rights that they're choosing.
I think it's good that they created the rights because if children didn't have rights, they wouldn't be able to have families, eat food, several different things.
They've learned and they use what they've learned daily. Even when they're with me during the day, they'll say, hey, we have the right to a quality education. And I remember that that's what they've learned in the museum this year.
Well, what I try to explain to animation is like kindness and helping out others that don't have what you have.
So these kids have learned how to do all different kinds of stop motion animation techniques. They've learned how to do pixelation, which is basically using their bodies as the moving objects. They've done puppets, and they've worked with clay stop motion, and they're also using Legos.
A lot of our students are immigrants, or their parents are immigrants, or they come from immigrant families. So this is a great way for them to be exposed to the different and various rights that they have as immigrants or as citizens of the United States.
Through their animations, they're exploring these different rights that children have throughout the world. At first, they didn't see how it really connected to their everyday lives, but these things are very universal. Kids might see it as just playing, but it's actually a way for them to have a voice and to express inner thoughts and feelings.
That's not only providing something that's really fun, but a different style of learning, which our kids really appreciate because they're such visual learners. I'm a visual learner, so when I saw this opportunity, I'm like, yes, I want our kids to get dirty and know that that's fun and still educational.
Okay, I think that we have here an example of how we can use technology for kids to go and to advance their critical thinking skills, right? And sometimes it's not that easy to find the willingness, for people and for the communities to really craft a program that is very impactful for kids. Many times because probably no, many times funding for this type of projects came from technology companies, for example, that they don't care that much exactly in what way they are going to use the technology, right? So there is always this gap between technological companies' interest and then the real interest of we as a society and how we are going to use those tools, right? So this is an example of how we can enhance really the use of technology and leverage purpose-driven use of it.
Can I ask you what tools you used with the students? It looked like you had document cameras.
Yes, yes. The cameras is actually a company called I forgot iPivo.
Yep.
They produce basically cameras and things to do student in motion animation, especially addresses to young people and to children for schools. And then laptops, right? So in this case, all that equipment was provided, but some donors that technological companies that put that equipment to develop the workshop. But then the part of the curation is part of the museum, right? So the problem is that many times that gap is not filled in the way that it should be filled. Right, and we center in the use of technology because at the beginning, the objective of this project was kids have to use technology, right, from day one. So the idea was for the promotion of technology, but the promotion of the use of technology by itself it doesn't say anything, right? The technology is not telling the story. The technology is just a medium. It's like a canvas. It could be a page, a blank page, or whatever. But it's not the story in itself, right?
Well, I think my takeaway from this is that you can do something pretty powerful with pretty simple technology tools. You don't need super sophisticated things. It's about the creativity and the thought process and tying it into something that's meaningful for students.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, what is happening right now, for example, on how right now is we need to solve a problem, and appear one company that, okay, we designed the app that this will help the teachers or whatever, and it's based on generating application that gather more data, this time for the students, to then generate another application that is going to solve your life. And again, when I tell my students, go grab the phone, that is something that you already have, and catch a portion of the life that is happening in your neighborhood, you don't need a fancy app to do that, right? What you need is to see it and develop that critical thinking skill with the students and help them how they can learn to tell stories, right? And stop doing it through the things that they are already watching on internet or seeing on internet, right? That are not curated and who knows what could be the final product of that, right? So yeah, totally agree with you. We don't need that much fancy technology. Technology is barely out there. Is how we design those activities, right?
So, do you want to do you want to tell us a little bit more about your organization?
No. I mean, I think that that's. I have one more example to screen because this is the other part. Also, the work that we do working with with kids with disabilities, neurodivergent students, which is something very important. Just as a reminder, 15-20% of the population in the United States is neurodiverse of some kind, right? It's more common than we think. Many of them are not diagnosed, and so it is important also for me as an educator and also managing an organization that design educational programs to incorporate neurodiversity with a strong educational programs and tie technology to that and leverage the use of technology for them to help them. Especially many of these groups are already using technology to communicate themselves, right? So this is another example that I would like to screen. These slides are so just emphasizing the meaning that storytelling transcends any type of technology, that we usually forget that, but it is what it is. And then what our role of educator is to advance critical thinking skills with the students, inspire a kind of storytelling that embrace culturally diverse perspectives, and also cultivate active citizens, both as a consumers and creators. So I think that these 3 points are the main goals that we have to follow in all the design of activities using multimedia resources and even other type of activities that don't use technology, right? So yeah, I would like now to screen the second example. Can you see me on the screen? On the screen. On the other side, you have the screen.
Come on, call back.
Okay, so right now, you know what I'm going to do, Vicente? Te voy a dar una cámara y tú vas a filmar. Pon tu mano así. Okay. Okay, great. ¿Sabes qué botón tienes que apretar para filmar, no? Este de aquí, mira, Vicente. Aprieta aquí. Okay, Vicente, go.
Vete. No viniste, tú no viniste.
Yo trabajo con Vicente desde que él entró aquí. Él entró aquí a los 13 años de edad y ya va para 20.
Action. Where was you born?
I was born in Yonkers, New York.
What high school you went?
I went to a high school called Saunders Trades and Technical High School, which is in Yonkers, New York. Where were you born?
New York.
You have a job?
No.
You want a job?
Yes.
What do you want to do?
Clean.
You want to clean? You can start by doing my office if you want.
I'll do it.
Jason.
Este año tengo a Jason Calderón López y yo he trabajado con muchos, solo que ahora con Jason tengo 2 años consecutivos trabajando con él. La verdad es que yo me llego a entender con los estudiantes o los llego a comprender tan bien que, por ejemplo, hoy está ausente Jason y como que lo extraño, como que siento que, bueno, ¿qué pasó? ¿Dónde está? Y es que la rutina nos hace sentir un especial afecto por ese estudiante.
Okay.
llegó el bailarín.
¿Cuántos años le quedan a Vicente en la escuela?
Ya, el próximo año ya se gradúa. Ya es un viejo. Ya es un hombre. Hecho y derecho ya. Y Luz se gradúa este año. Es Luz. Tú te gradúas este año, es la Luz. Mira, ¿quién es esa? ¿Quién es? Ay.
Action, that is recording. You see? If I say cut, what do you have to do, Luz? Cut? Cut.
What is the most important thing that you want people to know about P79?
That is a great question. Help them to discover their hidden talents and so that we can celebrate them.
Muy bien. Nice job, Vicente. Buen trabajo.
Buen trabajo.
¿Te ha gustado?
So one of the things that this reminds me of, we talked about when we were prepping for this webinar was there are two programs that it reminds me of, and I'm wondering if other people in the audience know of other ones, because I think it's important to learn from each other about this kind of work. So the first one that it reminds me of is Digital Youth Network, which is Nicole Pinkard, who used to be at University of Chicago and then DePaul and now is at Northwestern. She started a program where digital artists worked with youth in an after-school program to create media, and has done research around that. And it's a really excellent model. And that evolved into a space that I think is still in Chicago Public Library called UMedia, where kids can come and hang out and geek out and, work on video games or create a podcast or whatever in a safe space. And so that's the first reminder for me, is that. So I'm sure there are other programs out there, and it would be really cool if there were other digital media programs for youth that were kind of in their own little community and learning from each other, because I'm sure there are other ones out there. And then the other one is a little bit more recent, is a fellow Apple Distinguished Educator named Steve Douglas, teaches at the high school that I went to, which is Lake Forest High School. And Vince Vaughn, the actor, graduated probably 4 years after me, and has been involved with this program. It's called Chicago Summer Stories. And it's evolved in the first couple times they did this, it was with Chicago Public Schools students and suburban students. Now I think it's a little bit a mix of kids, of suburban kids who want to be part of it. But it's pretty powerful. It's like a 2 or 3 week summer media program for whomever wants to participate in it. And they're learning from I think in both cases, they're learning from real artists. They're learning from real people who work in the industries. And so I think it's a powerful model, to teach so many different skills through digital media. Pablo, what are you currently working on with students? What is the current objective of your organization?
Well, yes, right now we have different projects running that I'm partnering with different organizations in New York and here in DC. We have different levels. right? One of the projects that we do is just media literacy for everyone. Many times, we have the tendency to think that, we live in a society where everyone is obsessed with transfer skill to kids, right? And say, you have to learn this skill, this skill, this skill. And basically we are all the time focused on hard skills, right? How to edit video, how to take pictures, and how to composition and frame and so on. And there are a lot of many other soft skills or whatever you want to call it, right? Many people is trying to change the name right now to give it more sort of importance to the soft skills, which is collaborative work, which is critical thinking skills, which is all the other things that make you human, to say in some way, right? And able to socialize and to thrive on life. So many of the projects that we did in media literacy are directly focused on trying to help kids and teens, and especially help them in their mental health abilities. For example, how they are analyzing the images that they consume. We can totally say, stop using the phone, limit, screen time, and say, no, you don't have to compete with others, and read a book with them and watch a movie. But we are liking to do the most essential thing. Okay, activities on my last article that I wrote also is, okay, let's make the decision, let's browse on Instagram and say, okay, pick one image and think what the image, make you feel, right? And let's talk about that, right? So we convert this mechanical meaning of watching images all the time and generating thoughts and tied to emotions to a most, reliable way for kids to understand how the process works, right? So you are better equipped, to.
Are you involved with NAMLE at all, the National Association of Media Literacy? Is that an organization that you're familiar with?
I'm familiar with, but no, we are not involved.
Okay.
Not for a lack of it, is because right now we are in a process of growing as well, right?
I was just thinking about them because their call for proposals for their conference was out recently. So I don't know if it's still open or not, but it's my former partner with the Global Ed Conference was on their board for a little while. And it seems like that seems to be like the place to go for media literacy educators.
Okay, that is great. Thank you so much for the advice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that one level is the media literacy, right? And now the other level is also, when we say, okay, let's do some filmmaking with kids, people say, oh no, but in the Southwest, I was in one of the activities with PBS NewsHour. They have a very interesting project called Student Reporting Labs, right?
Yeah.
And the kids that are in the program, I asked them, listen, what if because I have this idea that we are starting with this project of the Teen Media Networks that I will introduce in a couple of minutes. And I asked them, would you be interested in participating in something like some sort of media network out of school? And the answer was like, well, if I want to pursue a career in media. And the thing is that is the other thing. When we teach media, we have the tendency to think that it's because kids want to be media producers in the future and so on. So we have to start incorporating media literacy and the use of filmmaking tools and creation and so on, and even video games in the regular basis as math or science. It's simply like that. If we really care about the mental health of students, we have to go through that. Okay, we also have to regulate the big companies and whatever, but the big companies are not worried about how people is using their technology. So we have to work on that part, right? And these sort of programs, as the program that you mentioned in Chicago with the youth digital creation for kids, are super valuable because we need to generate more of these safe spaces for kids to gather themselves, exchange ideas, and create. maybe some of the kids that will participate in this program are not going to pursue a future media production. They are going to law school, they are going to, medicine school, but in that process, they will learn because creating media and sharing ideas is not only for the people who want to be a filmmaker.
I'll give you an example. I have a friend, and I'll find his YouTube channel, who's a friend whose son is a medical resident in the St. Louis area. And he has a YouTube channel that's really funny about his life as a resident. And I think he made a ton of money off of this channel in the last couple of years that he's done it. And so these skills transcend different professions. It's important that people know how to be able to tell their story in a concise and creative way. But I'm going to push back on something about technology companies. You said that the technology companies don't care how people are using the technology. And I would beg to differ because I think it depends on the company. And I think, like, for instance, if I'm biased because I'm an Apple Distinguished Educator and I love Apple. But if you've seen some of the filmmaking that they've done, particularly around, like, there's some really powerful ones with people with disabilities who are using the technology like in incredible ways. Some of my Apple Distinguished Educator colleagues have worked with kids with disabilities where they've done a student is wheelchair bound and able to use switches in order to edit a video. Really amazing stuff. So I think Apple has put an investment in accessibility in their products. So I think that's part of it. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like they have been supportive of digital creativity in general, and the whole education community in Apple is really focused on creativity these days. So I think that's the case. Adobe, for example, it has also a really strong educator program and tools that are accessible to people. So I think it depends. I think maybe the twist on this is maybe the social media companies are the ones that are not necessarily caring about the quality or changing humanity. So I think we need to be careful about generalizing. And I think that there are organizations that are trying to work with social media companies in terms of safety and that sort of thing. And I work for one on a contractual basis called COSIN, which is for school technology directors. And they've had some recent webinars with people from TikTok and Facebook or Meta and Twitter to kind of discuss some of these issues, because it's so critical. And we're seeing that schools are now starting to sue some of these companies for the lack of controls that they've had that they've not had in their products. So I think I think there's some technology companies that are incredibly supportive of creative uses. I think that it's time for the social media companies to kind of come along too.
Yeah. I was referring more to the platform where people consume this content, for those platforms that offer or develop the tools, right? The case of Adobe is a super good example. They invest a lot in education, and also even Apple, but more I was referring more on the screens, right? And how that
and to your point, I think that the passive use of technology, the passive consumption is what we educators need to kind of keep in mind. I'm much more interested in your take, or in how you're having students create, publish, and show what they know through that, rather than just consuming and watching videos constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Because even though, and don't get me wrong, even though if we have a lot of and strong regulations to the companies that develop social media, it's something very difficult also to control in some way, right? The only way that you can fight against that is through education, through educating people, media literacy, and critical thinking, right? So it's not just a matter of when I mentioned that the part of the company, I also want to point out that companies look for revenue many of the time, right? It's not the work necessarily go and do the education, but that is okay. We are here for that, right? And the work should be, collaborative, right? It's not ones against others. We have to work collaborative on that, and with an intention, right?
Okay. Yeah. So do you have other slides? Do you want me to continue with the slides, or where do you want to go? Because we have 10 minutes left, and I would love if people have questions.
Yes.
Put them in the chat, and we can show them and address them. Is there anything else that you want to cover?
I just wanted to mention the project that we just started, the Teen Media Network initiative.
Yes, this one.
This is. Well, I mean.
So tell us about this. We'd love to hear about this.
Yeah, this project is basically all the things that we were talking before, right? Is to create a media network in where teens can gather and create content in a safe way and be curated, right? And try to bring a little bit, because at this point, all the classes that I'm doing right now, for example, many of the kids that are in the classes, they already have their YouTube channel that they do the video game thing, right? Or whatever. So the Teens Media Network initiative is just help teens to curate this content and also self-curate this content.
Okay. So
right?
tell us exactly what happens when somebody joins the Teens Media Network. How do people get involved, and what does the program look like specifically?
Yes. So the program is going to start this summer in a summer media camp with a small group of teens, and we are going to follow a model of a project that we did in Barcelona. And this small group of teens are going to take the lead in designing the project, right? That means that they are going to create all the communicational part of the project and how it's going to be promoted to engage more kids, right? And even that included the design of the website and so on. So we are going to spend some time first working in the foundation of the project, because the idea and the uniqueness of this project is it's going to be, or pretend to be, something that is for teens and creative for them. We are going to have the mentors that are going to support them, right? And also the project is going to have a meaning of community and collaboration, right? Rather than I go there to learn skills, kids are going to go there as you mentioned before, to mingle with each other and have an experience that is going to be transformational for their lives.
Is this an in-person program or is this a virtual program?
This is going to start as a virtual program, okay? Because we have right now interest for teens to work in different parts of the country, which is also the beauty of this project. Yeah. Okay. But that doesn't mean that if we found resources for a specific project in one city, we are going to go there and work still with a group of people there.
So you're looking for partner organizations?
We are looking for partners organizations that work in education, in media, or not necessarily in media, but just youth development. Of course, we are looking for funding, honors and grants and so on. And yeah, for example, we are also looking for partners in the private sector. Adobe could be a great partner on a project like this, providing the software for kids to create their projects. And yeah, I mean, we are looking for the support of the whole community, educational community.
Okay. We have a question. How do you raise money needed for equipment and coursework? And what percentage of your budget is from donations, grants, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that depends a lot on the projects that sometimes we work in projects that are 100% fully supported by one organization on one grant, right? But we also have, for example, for the Teen Media Networks, is an initiative that is more independent in that way. So we are getting donations, which is a small part, about the 25% of the project, that can feed this project, right? That depends on what are the organizations that we have partnered with, and also the the projects and the scope that the projects are going to have. Okay.
I think what Jared is asking is are there go-to sources that typically fund these kinds of projects? How do you find them? And I'm what grant resources are out there? And that's a really good question. I mean, in the global education world, where here in the United States, there's small global organizations that are struggling, I think, to find funding, and a lot of them have expanded into virtual exchange and have gotten funded by the Stevens Initiative or something like that, or maybe there's a grant through the State Department or whatever for some exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
But they're for the small nonprofit trying to operate, trying to work, with a project that is fostering global competence. It seems difficult to find the right financial model. Whereas in Europe, they have, there's money through the EU, through Erasmus, that seems to fund global citizenship projects in general. So we don't seem to have a kind of a major source of funding for the kind of work that I'm trying to do. And so I think that's part of the struggle is doing your research, finding some organizations. There are some nonprofit groups that I think are helpful in terms of running a nonprofit. And I'll put the list. I have a Twitter list that I'll put in the chat that might be helpful. But I'm wondering are there any go-to sources for finding grants that you know of? Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, there are many of the grants. What happened in the United States? Many of the grants internationally, we can think, for example, the European Commission has some grants for media production. The thing is, like, sometimes focuses only in the European territory or in Europe and Latin America. So you have to research very well how that cooperation can work. And then here in the United States, there are many organizations that are funding projects for educational alternatives, especially many organizations that are in California, because there is a great, they nurture a lot alternatives for learning and for schools. The New Schools Venture Funds is one organization that recently closed some grants that we apply for that grant for the Teen Media Network Initiative as well. There is the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation that is also giving for technology projects. So I think that the key here is researching and see how the project should be rated and should be customized for each organization that is granting money. It's super important, but it is not impossible, because in a project as a Teen Media Network, if we focus only in media production, so then we are going to be much more limited on the possibilities. But we can talk about technology and we can broaden the things and go to the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation and ask for money there, right? So we have to be creatives as much as possible. For equipment, I would say that the best way is partner with iPivo, which is this organization, this company that gives made the cameras for stop motion animation. Is a possibility. Absolutely, they are open. If you go and say, listen, we want to develop this stop motion animation workshop, it's very likely that if you show and demonstrate that you can do the projects, they will give you the equipment to do it.
So approaching corporate companies directly and seeing if they have some sort of program. I'm wondering too if there's something like there's the Sienna Solutions Challenge. I'm wondering if when Opportunity, which is from Digital Promise, I believe offers a grant for students to work on different challenges. And so, and I think that they just awarded them for this year. But I wonder, so this kind of, this might be something to keep an eye out on in the future from next year. And I'll put the link in the chat here for everybody. We have a comment from Alexis, and I'm going to put this up here. Alexis says, and maybe you want to respond. Yeah, storytelling is a key part of education. Scholars perform better when we invest in them and learn from them and tell their stories. So I think that's a really nice comment. Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add, Pablo, before we wrap up? Any other questions from the audience? What are you're looking for partners, you're looking for students to be in these programs. Anything else that we can mention to the audience in case they want to connect with you?
Yes, I will give you if I think that the best way is go to collectivopiloto.org.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the bottom are all the links of the Vimeo. On Vimeo, we have a lot of resources, more than 200 videos with many projects that you can get inspired with ideas to design projects there. And also the YouTube channel and all the resources are for there. And also I will advise everyone to subscribe to our newsletter. That is a bi-monthly newsletter that we gather all the projects that we are doing and all the other partners and organizations that we are working with and put all of there so it's available for everyone.
Okay, that's great. And you're going to be tomorrow, you're going to be at our Ed Camp too. Mm-hmm. And at the Ed Camp, it's in the Hop In platform. There's the ability to schedule meetings with people and video conference with people right in the platform. So if you want to come and have a personal conversation with Pablo, we would love to have you. I will put the link up for you to that in a second as well. And I'm going to put in the Twitter list again. And hopefully, if you can't find the Twitter list, if you're in a platform that, like, if you're watching in LinkedIn, you may not see the links that we're putting into the chat. If you follow me on Twitter, my Twitter name is Elemenous, ELEMENOUS, and you look under my lists on my profile, and you'll see one that's listing nonprofit resources. And I've found there are a couple of particular ones that I found useful that have helped me with my technology usage and marketing wise of a nonprofit. One is TechSoup, and the other one is Community Boost. Community Boost is really amazing. They have a conference every once in a while that's free and really useful in kind of working these things out. I don't know if those links will necessarily lead to grant type opportunities, everyone, but you might find something in there that's useful. And the link, if you have any, I'll be following up the people who registered with these links as well after the event today. So if you've missed something, don't worry. I'll make sure that I get it into the final email to participants. And if not, you can always email me at Lucy Gray Consulting, and I will send you whatever you need. Any final words for us, Pablo, before we let everyone go? Thanks for coming, everyone.
No, just thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And any way that I can help, I'm more than happy than that. So my email, I don't know if you put my email in some part.
I put your LinkedIn and Twitter and that sort of thing.
So everyone just feel free to reach out to me. Also with the grants opportunities, that is something, a very important point that you made me think about that. Probably for the next newsletter, we can add a part what our grants are active there.
Yeah.
Another quick point, the other day I was talking with a colleague she is from Georgia, and she told me that there are many still money in just small counties that are giving money still for the COVID relief that they have.
Yes.
Many media organizations are applying to those little grants. So
you should look for, the other thing too is, and I'm not an expert in this, so don't quote me on it, but there's been federal funding called ESSER money, ESSER funding. And it can be the third, my understanding is that the third wave of this money could be used for a lot of different things. So for instance, you could tie, like you mentioned earlier, digital storytelling to, improve social emotional learning and health. And so the money can be used for SEL type of activities and programs and that sort of thing. My understanding is that this funding runs out maybe in September 2024. So there's going to be a fiscal cliff that schools are going to hit, where they've had some extra money for the past couple of years to pay for additional counselors and that sort of thing, and that money's going to go away. That extra money in September of 2024. So there may still be some funding wherever you are in the United States, at least, that has been dedicated towards COVID relief. So that's a really, really good idea, Pablo, to kind of look into that and see what's available in your school. Thank you, Pablo, for being here. We appreciate your time and your expertise, and we're looking forward to learning more with you as your program progresses. And I know that we'll have fun tomorrow at the Ed Camp online, and hopefully at Glow in November again too. So thank you. Our next conversation is May 11th, and this is going to be on a Thursday afternoon because Kyle Wagner, who is going to be joining us and talking about PBL, project-based learning, he's based in Hong Kong. So it'll be a little bit more of a reasonable hour than 1 o'clock on a Friday, which is like probably, I don't know what time it is for him, but it's not a good time for him. So we're moving it to Thursday, May 11th at 4 p.m., which is not our usual time, and that's totally fine. You can register at bit.ly/actionable Kyle Wagner, and all the words are capitalized in that. And I'm really excited. If you don't follow Kyle on LinkedIn, you should. He has some really provocative posts about project-based learning and the work that he's doing abroad. And I think you'll enjoy learning from him as well on May 11th at 4 p.m. We also have some other ones coming up too that I'm not mentioning here specifically, but we have a preview of the ISTE conference coming up with Dr. Kyla Holland and Greta, and that's happening on May 26th. And then we also have another one scheduled for June 9th, and my daughter's going to be part of this. Speaking of neurodiversity, Pablo, both of my kids have gone to a college called Landmark College in Vermont that specializes in kids who have ADHD, dyslexia, who are on the autism spectrum. One of those three or a combination of those types of things. And Julia just graduated, and she had a research project with the gentleman who's going to join us on June 9th, who's head of research at Landmark and Innovation. And so Julia's going to join us too and talk about her experiences doing research about neurodiversity with Adam Lawler, and hopefully some of her classmates as well. So that's on June 9th. So we've got some really exciting things coming up. And the whole idea here is to build community, is to get people connected and figuring out how they can collaborate and that sort of thing. And again, our NEA Foundation Global Learning Ed Camp that we're helping with is tomorrow. Hopefully you can see the link there. And it's free registration. It says it's open from 9 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon, something like that. The actual live part of it starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the rest of the time you can go in and network and connect with people and that sort of thing. So hopefully you'll join us then. And then finally, if you are interested in staying in touch and want to get involved with the things that we're doing, you can find us at linktree/actionable. Thanks everyone for coming and staying a little bit longer. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at our next one. Thanks for coming.